Chapter 1. Verity. V, where's your passport? Have you found it yet? Her father's voice had a ring of frustration to it, like he wanted to be out the door in the next 10 minutes. He needed to learn to relax, she thought. They had a good hour. V, did you hear me? Her name was Verity, but everyone called her V. Verity didn't roll off the tongue easily, but she liked the name. It meant truth, and Verity had taken her name as her lifelong mission in everything she did. Life was like a puzzle, and she was there to solve it. She could complete Sudoku puzzles quicker than her father and relished a good detective book, a real whodunit mystery story. Right now, the problem to solve was the whereabouts of her passport, and, so far, the solution had eluded her. The truth of the matter was, she didn't have a clue as to where it was. As a result of this conundrum, her bedroom was in a complete state, like a tornado had whipped through it with no concern for anything but causing havoc. The clock was ticking. Her family had to get to London Heathrow Airport to catch a plane to Central America. This was the first time, now that Mum was gone, that they had accompanied Dad on one of his trips. Ethan said they were boring trips, but he was a boy, so what would he know? Being the sibling who reads books, Verity felt she knew more than Ethan. A lot more. Verity's bedroom door opened. Hey, V, Dad's getting pretty irate. Have you found it yet? Why have you even got it? It should be in the drawer with the others. You always have to do things differently. Hey V, Dad's getting pretty irate. Have you found it yet? Why have you even got it? It should be in the drawer with the others. You always have to do things differently. Brothers were bad at the best of times, but twin brothers? They were worse than bad. They were detestable. Okay, Ethan, keep your hair on. I suppose you're ready. Yes, I've been waiting downstairs for 10 minutes. We are completely ready, replied Ethan. Twins are funny things. Sometimes they love each other and are inseparable. Other times they hate each other and can't stand spending time in close proximity. Then there are those occasions when twins can love and hate each other in equal measure. They can wind each other up until they explode, but also depend on each other in ways that other siblings of different ages very rarely do. Verity and Ethan were that sort of twins. Right now, she hated him. Not real hate, of course, but brotherly and sisterly hate that comes when you see the other one giving you a smarmy grin, like a teacher's pet. Ethan swept his hand through his dark brown hair and shifted to his side. Oh, look, V, here it is, he said as he pulled the passport from under a pair of dirty jeans on the dresser. That was never there. You had it. Didn't you? You little... V, for goodness sake, girl, come on, came Dad's voice thundering from downstairs. Some weasel just found it for me, she shouted back before snatching the passport from Ethan's hands and storming out of the room. She liked puzzles, but she hated tricks. Tricks were what people were able to do when they weren't being truthful. Ethan was good at that. At tricks and not being truthful. Dad was waiting for them downstairs, his tall, thin frame leaning against the front door, tense and tired already. Right, your bags are packed in the car, everything in the house is turned off, and the airport is waiting for us, he said, running his hand through his sandy-coloured hair. Sometimes he really reminded Verity of Ethan. No, sometimes Ethan really reminded her of Dad. Her father was a very careful man who didn't like to take risks. Plug sockets can cause fire, he always said, if they were going away for anything longer than a weekend, before turning each and every one of them off. The house became a dead zone where all living technology was put briefly on hold, frozen in time, to be resurrected upon their return. Parts of Verity, like her father, were careful. Her thinking about puzzles, her homework, when she was making things in Dad's shed. Parts of her weren't careful. These were mainly the parts responsible for cleaning her room. After a last check around the house, Dad liked to check again, just after a good check, and then once more to make sure. The three of them piled into the car to set off to the airport. Their destination, Guatemala, a country squashed snugly between Mexico, Belize, Honduras, El Salvador, and the sea. The trip was going to be exotic, it was going to be surprising, but most of all, and unbeknownst to the twins and their father, it was going to be dangerous, very dangerous indeed. Verity, though, was not aware of this. She was excited. She loved airports, at least the few she had been to. There was so much opportunity to people watch, guessing where they might be going and why. There were people everywhere, families, groups, people on their own, couples in love, couples out of love, children, workers, holiday makers, businessmen and women, the old and the young. Airports were feasts for her eyes. They delighted her. Chapter 2. Ethan. Ants scuttled around on their never-ending errands, almost bumping into each other, yet keeping to their swift journeys from here to there, arranging themselves in single-file columns with occasional bursts of speed around the edges in attempts to overtake slower movers. Some stopped, drawn in by lights or shelves covered in attractive goods, or departure screens, or the realization that one of their children was missing. Most, however, had places to be, causing flowing rivers of movement, cascades of motion at all levels of the large building. The departure hall was like two river deltas moving in opposite directions, crashing into each other, except there was no crashing. All these people, on all their different journeys, had, without thought, arranged themselves into an efficient network of flowing bodies and minds, so that it was as if the hall itself had come alive, its veins and arteries ebbing and surging in constant flux. Ethan hated airports. Here they were in the huge departure lounge in its flowing busyness, and all there was to do was shop, and shopping was boring. There were no games to play, and by games ideally what Ethan wanted was football, rugby or cricket, the things he loved school for, and karate at the weekends. But here all he could do was wish he had his handheld games console. But Dad hadn't let him bring it. What was the point of going on holiday if you couldn't take things like that, he thought. He had read his football magazine already, and Verity didn't want to play Uno. With a great Ethan stood up and announced, "I'm going to that shop over there." V was reading a book and Dad was reading a science magazine. Both were being as fun as watching paint dry. "Don't wander too far," said Dad without even looking up from his reading. Ethan sauntered across a busy walkway, stopping in the middle because he could. Ethan loved damming channels at a beach he used to visit on the Isle of Wight that had a small river running down through the sands. He would block channels with sand and stones, small rocks and bits of driftwood. Now, himself an unmoving boulder in these currents, Ethan stood stock still and took in the motion around him. After a minute of affecting all those around him, he moved on and into a shop, one that sold a whole range of things that people might want on their holidays, or might have forgotten to bring. After 10 minutes of absent-mindedly scanning a whole range of different items, something caught his eye and stoked the fires of adventure in him. After all, the only fiction books he did read were spy books. He would surely put these to good use in Guatemala. "You spent how much?" "Well, that's all your pocket money for the first 2 days gone," Dad said in an irritated voice upon Ethan's return. No one seemed quite as excited about his binocular and compass survival set as Ethan was. Oh well, their loss. Ethan proceeded to spend the next 20 minutes of mindless waiting, staring at random people through his binoculars. This included Verity at very close range, scaring her as she looked up from her book to be confronted with the two massive shiny alien eyes of his new purchase. "These would be well useful in Guatemala, when we're in the jungle, looking out from the new temple they found," Ethan said excitedly to his sister. "Shh! You know we're not supposed to talk about it. They're keeping it secret whilst the experts look at everything. They don't want the press and TV stations getting all excited and ruining the site before they've done all the proper work." "Calm down, V. You're so uptight sometimes. Look, maybe we'll be able to see orangutans with these," Ethan replied. Verity looked up from her book and right down the other end of the binoculars into her brother's eyes. Orangutans live in Borneo, in Asia, Ethan, on the other side of the world. We're more likely to see spider monkeys. Fingers crossed, we'll even encounter an ocelot, or maybe, if we're really lucky, you'll be eaten by a jaguar. She raised her eyebrows and gave him a sideways glance. This is why you need to read more books. Geek. After looking up at the monitor above their heads, their father interrupted the testy twins. Right, kids, we're going to be boarding soon. Make sure you got everything, and that includes your passport, V. Ha ha, Dad, very funny, she sarcastically replied. Dad began collecting his own belongings together before turning back to the children suddenly, as if only just registering the twins' conversation. V's right about that, Ethan. We shouldn't go shouting about this temple. It's quite a find, and the world's press will go mad for a story like this. The British Museum knows, and they are very excited, which is why they have let me go and help. They're even paying for me. I expect they'll want an exhibition in return. I've always had expertise in Mesoamerican history. That's the area around Mexico, Guatemala and El Salvador, Ethan. You know, between North and South America, Verity interjected with her own smarmy, knowing smile. Yeah, I know that, thank you very much, Miss Hume. We're not at school now, Teach. Of course, Ethan didn't know that, or, if he had once, he had since forgotten it. He only held on to useful information like football formations that his favourite teams used, or who had transferred to where, and for how much money, or how to get onto level 9 in his latest computer game, Trail of Oblivion. Anyway, I want to know if there's going to be another Mayan prophecy about the end of the world. The Mayans sound cool. Verity looked at Ethan in a way that made him feel he was about to be corrected. He was going to be taught something. He hated that look. Actually, and he hated it when Verity started her sentence with actually. People often make the mistake of using Mayan as an adjective to describe things to do with the Maya, or to name the Maya themselves. But you should only really use the term Mayan to refer to the language. All other times, it's best to use the term Maya. OMG. Hashtag no one cares, V. You're so dull, Ethan reacted. Oh, so I'm a loser for knowing things. That's really childish, Ethan, even for you. I know something, V. I know that you're a completely awesome sister. Thanks, Ethan. Verity gave her brother a smug look. Children, I'm not putting up with this for the whole journey. Cut it out. Their father had spoken, but how much good it would do was another question. The three travellers were soon seated on the aircraft, buckled in with excitement growing, the two children hijacking their father's 3 weeks of work for a holiday of their own. No one could look after them for that final week before the beginning of the summer holidays, so he had received special permission to take them with him. He had been hoping that they wouldn't get in his way, as he had often reminded them over the last few weeks. However, they would end up doing far more than get in his way. Far more.